it's a name that wasn't talked about much throughout this whole process. Really, I only heard his name in the last day or two get mentioned, but a little surprised at first. Didn't know he was even considering taking a role like that. But knowing he's in that spot, man, I couldn't be more excited. I think he's going to be a great guy for the job. Getting to play with him for a little bit, I know who he is as a person. His level of integrity, the level of respect he has from everybody in that clubhouse. I think he's going to fit in great, with these guys. It's going to be an easy transition for us.
Wow. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I'm Marty Cassavell, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place, and that is AJ Cassavell. That does not appear to be North Park or OB or anywhere else. So
OB.
AJ, you're in OB.
This
sorry.
is not OB, but yeah, no, I am taking 4 days away from OB, and I'm in the mountains. So this is the start of the vacation. Is after this is in 25 minutes.
How can anyone that covers the Padres on a pretty much daily beat for a living, how can they take an off day during the off season, which is when AJ Preller is the most unpredictable?
That's a really good question. You try and I have tried to find little gaps and pockets where AJ Preller won't be active, and then he inevitably is. So you just got to say, whenever you can find the time, you do it. So Parlo had Monday and Tuesday off of school, so that's why we're here.
All right, you heard Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove in that open talking about not a name that they thought was going to be in the equation. Joe Musgrove seemed to be a little bit shocked by the news. I was floored. What was your reaction to the news of Craig Stammen?
Probably not as surprised as everyone else seems to be. Now, I was surprised because his name was not mentioned, and I would have assumed that his name would have been mentioned just because he's an internal candidate, and who knows? But the least surprising thing in the world to me is that Craig Stammen is a major league manager. I could have told you while I was covering him as a player that one day, in fact, I think I'm just thinking of this now, but I'm pretty sure years ago we had an assignment, or at least someone someone above me sent an email and said, on each team, who is the most likely player to be a future manager? And Stammen was my choice. So Stammen as a manager is not surprising. He's a clear leader. He was a leader of a lot of Padres bullpens and became the de facto leader of some of the teams in 2020, 2022. He has great relationship building skills, as I think your interview with Joe showed, and some of what we've heard from former players. And you obviously need some level of baseball acumen to be in the manager's chair. And I guess we'll find out whether Craig Stammen has that specific baseball acumen, but he's done a lot in the last 2 years in terms of working with the front office and working with the coaching staffs and working in a lot of different capacities. So the timing of it surprised me. The fact that Craig Stammen is the Padres manager right now, definitely a surprise. He wasn't mentioned among one of the finalists. I guess he was that mystery fourth finalist, but the fact that Craig Stammen is the manager of the Padres, I could have told you 7 years ago that was a possibility that one day might be the case.
I am looking forward to finding out, and I'm not sure how much. I mean, we'll get at this press conference on Monday, how were Craig Stammen's questions to the finalists so good that AJ is thinking, you know what? Wow, that's a great question. I didn't think of that angle. Maybe this is a guy that we should hire. How on earth how does a guy who's in the room to be part of the interview process become the guy for AJ Preller?
I think my understanding, and this is just based on some quick reporting from yesterday, but my understanding is that it was more the other way around, more Craig Stammen deciding he wanted to throw his name in the mix, and the Padres kind of being well, that seems like a pretty good fit. Let's see where this goes. I don't know exactly why in the early stages Stammen wasn't one of the names mentioned. We heard AJ Ellis's name mentioned pretty quickly, and Stammen fills a very similar role to what Ellis has done. So yeah, I guess I don't know how much of this we'll get out of the press conference on Monday, but I just think that the manager's role came open pretty quickly, and maybe in the immediate aftermath, being a big league manager, there's a lot that goes into it, and you kind of need to be lined up and make sure that's where you want to go. And if Craig Stammen threw his name into the mix a little later than some of the other candidates, I don't think ultimately that's important. If he's the right guy for the job, that's what's important. And I don't know whether he is. I guess we'll find out. There are other lot of it will likely be contingent on what the Padres roster looks like. But I guess in terms of kind of commanding the respect of that clubhouse, I don't think there's another guy that will be able to do it as well as Craig. Craig clearly has a lot of that.
Are you at all surprised that AJ Preller is going with another first-time manager? It's three in the last 4 hires.
Not really. I wouldn't it be 3 in the last 5 hires?
5?
Because Bob and Mike were.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But
I almost forgot about Bob Nolan.
Regardless, I'm not really surprised. Like this, and like there have been success stories, there have been failures. First-time managers, like if you surround that first-time manager with the right people, you're gonna be okay, at least in mitigating the fact that he is a first-time manager and he's navigating some of those challenges in the dugout. I think they're going to surround him with the right people. I think it sounds like Ruben Niebla is coming back and Ben Fritz is coming back, and the pitching side of the equation is looking pretty stable. And I also think a lot of the coaching staff, like there will be some stability just beyond those guys. I don't know the specifics of that yet. That's still to be finalized. But obviously Victor Rodriguez is left to go to Houston, and I believe the third base coach's role will come open as well. But I don't know that like the rest of the staff, the continuity there is like I think there will be plenty of it. And I think that will be a good thing for a team that just won 90 games in consecutive seasons. And I also think that like the fact that Craig Stammen has worked directly with AJ Preller and has worked directly with the Padres front office and clearly has some say and influence. And he was there in the draft room. He was there in the trade deadline day room. Like he knows how that operates. Like as first-time managers go, it's hard to envision someone hitting the ground running more than Craig Stammen, given what he's done in the organization, like given his deep ties to the organization. There's still going to be growing pains. Like we have no idea how Craig Stammen will handle some of the things that come out of being a manager because he's never done it before. And I think the maybe the ideal here is what you got out of Stephen Vogt in Cleveland, who is maybe some similar, like well regarded as a baseball player. Everyone kind of thought he had a future manager, had manager role in his future, but got it very quickly and got it very soon after he retired and ended up managing some guys that he played with. Maybe that's where this goes. And the Padres, I think, have a more talented roster than Cleveland, so maybe they get even more success than what the Guardians have had. That's probably the optimistic way of seeing it, but all the questions are going to be there until we get into the season and kind of see how this thing goes.
How important is the bench coach going to be, especially for a guy, in his own words, who's going to be learning to manage on the fly?
Important. I think Ruben Niebla fills half the role of bench coach just in terms of pitching decisions. So maybe not so important. Like to me, the most important hires are going to be on the hitting side and what the Padres do with their clear hitting talent that they haven't been able to maximize, or they did. I think they maximized it to an extent in 2024. Like that offense was really good. They did not maximize their offense in 2025, and they have some maybe philosophical issues in terms of how they can get more power from those guys. So not to steer the question, but like bench coach will be important. I think tactically, like that kind of stuff is more important in October, like April through September. I don't know that strategy is so important. I think it's more about like keeping the vibes good, keeping your pitchers fresh, like things that aren't directly correlated to like when you should pinch hit and that kind of thing. Obviously, like you watch the later part of the playoffs, like that stuff's really freaking important, and you don't really learn about a manager and how they manage tactically until the postseason. But the regular season's about vibes, and so bench coach, part of those vibes. Like they need to get the right hire. They need the right guy the right kind of support staff for Craig Stammen. I think Brian Esposito would be a good fit. He kind of brought some pretty solid vibes as a bench coach, and like they didn't do anything necessarily too wrong tactically that I can remember under Mike Shildt. How much was Mike? How much was Esposito? I don't know. Anyway, long story short, bench coach hire is important. The hitting side is, to me, significantly more important.
I think the toughest thing for Padres fans in all of this is, number one, the shock of Craig Stammen, who doesn't have the experience, but also the idea that you had a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of our generation available, who has this relationship with Manny Machado and Tatis, right? Are you surprised at all that he was not given the job? And how serious a candidate was he? Another guy who doesn't know the organization inside out the way Craig Stammen does and doesn't have that experience.
He was a serious candidate because he was one of the 4 finalists. Like, those were the 4 guys they were picking among when it came down to it. I think, from at least what I've heard, that it ended up being a choice between Stammen and Ruben Niebla. But I also think that Pujols might have, like, until the last day or two, was a very serious, very strong candidate. When it comes to the relationship with Tatis and Machado, I know, like, Stammen also has that, and the future Hall of Fame clout, like, that is not nothing, but I'm just not sure, like, how important that is for the manager's chair. If like, it's important that he has a relationship with the biggest stars on your team, which Pujols clearly does, but which Stammen also does. And so it's hard for me to say. Stammen, knowing the organization, clearly helped his cause, I think. I think, like, clearly Albert Pujols has designs on becoming a manager, and I think, given his clout and given the fact that he's kind of persistent in pursuing that, he'll get that job eventually, and then at that point we'll know whether the Padres made the right decision or not, by going with Stammen over Pujols and over Niebla. Although if Niebla comes back, then you kind of get the Stammen Niebla 1-2 punch. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting idea. It was an idea that, like, you asked if I was surprised that it was Stammen and not Pujols. Yes, because, like, Pujols was the guy that I was doing my homework on and looking into. I hadn't heard Craig Stammen's name mentioned until very, very recently, and so here we are. And it's Craig Stammen, and, like, I do think the relationship aspect is extremely important. The future Hall of Fame clout, to me, as a manager, just kind of is not.
I'd imagine, and for all the points that you just mentioned, and I had the same conversation with Joe Musgrove yesterday, and I know, I mean, he was close with those players. He was a leader in that clubhouse. Even when he wasn't able to go, no one's ever going to question his grit. So I think he's going to command an instant respect from some of those guys that Jace Tingler had no chance at as a first-time manager, that Andy Green, with a completely different sort of roster with Rule 5 guys, a roster not expected to win, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, what exactly is Craig Stammen inheriting, and is he available to pitch? Because the Padres have a lot of issues, man, a lot of issues in that starting rotation, and also the back end of the bullpen with Robert Suarez opting out.
That's a really good question. When he retired, he had gotten the shoulder capsule surgery. So I think, and I had talked, so, like, he was rehabbing from it, and he got back to a point where I think he said he could throw comfortably. So who knows? Maybe player manager. Maybe if they need a 7th inning guy, if they move Mason Miller to the rotation, and no, this bullpen's already good enough. They don't need Craig Stammen. Maybe for a spot start in Game 3 of the wild card series, but otherwise, no. What is he inheriting? Like, I think it's a really good roster. It's just like questions in the rotation. He's inheriting a tough situation in a tough division. Like, the Dodgers are really good, and they're probably going to get. They're probably, I don't know if they'll get better this offseason, but they're going to add pieces.
They will definitely add pieces. They'll spend a lot more money.
What are the Padres going to do to keep their pitching staff afloat, or at least to, like, fill out? I mean, they need 3 starting pitchers at least. If one of them is Mason Miller, then they need 2. But I would still say, like, we're going to talk to AJ Preller at the press conference and then at the general managers meetings next week, and he's going to say, well, you can never have too much starting pitching. Like, we need to fill out the rotation, but you can never have too much starting pitching. I'm looking at the rotation right now. It doesn't have that guy. It doesn't have Darvish. It has Joe Musgrove coming back from Tommy John surgery, which can be a process. So it has Nick Pivetta and Randy Vasquez, and then some question marks. And Joe Musgrove, I'm fairly confident that he will put the work in and he will be in decent shape. But like 33 starts from Joe Musgrove, maybe not. So they have a lot of work to do in that rotation. I think this organization has, like, earned the benefit of the doubt that they will make the right decisions in acquiring pitchers and then deciding how to advance those pitchers. As long as Ruben Niebla is still on board, like, they have been excellent at that. Maybe one of the best teams in baseball at it. And so, like, if there's going to be a deficiency on the team, the rotation is kind of where you want it to be, because they've proven they can find guys, turn them into starters, turn them from mediocre starters to great starters. The offense seems kind of set. Maybe just needs a new voice, new philosophy, one more bat. The bullpen, I don't even know if they need to add anybody. I think they probably do if they if they move Mason Miller. But yeah, it's
Do
an
you
interesting
expect,
roster with some
Mason
interesting
Miller to be where he
questions.
is? Do you expect Mason Miller to be the closer? I mean,
60-40, I would say it's more likely that
okay.
he's the closer.
Okay.
He's established and proven in that role. But AJ Preller, it's not often that AJ Preller like drops information in these press conferences that he does. He likes to kind of avoid the subject and avoid the answer. But when we asked him about Mason Miller, I thought there was a pretty interesting nugget where he said, and we'll see how the offseason plays out and who else we
Mm,
acquire and what direction we want to go. And so like that decision could potentially hinge on what they're looking at. Like this is not a decision they're making right now. I think they might be sitting down and being like, hey, we could go this way, we could go that way. Here are the pros and the cons. But if the Padres can't find, like that to me says that if they can't find the right starter, they'd maybe be comfortable moving Mason Miller into the rotation to fill that role. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I still think it's more likely he's a reliever. I still think it's you're more guaranteed to get what you want out of Mason Miller as a reliever, but we'll see.
I know when Yu Darvish released his statement on his surgery and the Padres ensuing press release, I mean, he didn't say he was retiring, but honestly, I would be shocked if we saw him pitch again for the Padres. I know he is a man of honor. I know he wants to go ahead and fulfill his contract, not just collect a paycheck. But do you think this is it for Darvish as a pitcher with the Padres, or actually just not Padres but baseball?
I think it's probably more likely than not. Maybe like, but I'll go back to the 60-40. I think it's he's the one sentence in the statement, and I can't remember the specifics of it, but you might about just trying to like feel okay throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't sound like feeling okay throwing the ball. Like if you want to be a big league pitcher, you got to feel freaking great throwing the ball. You got to feel like free and easy. And the fact that like this is his third elbow operation, it's his second major elbow operation. He's had other elbow issues in the past. The counterpoint to all of this skepticism about Darvish returning is this guy loves pitching and like just loves being on the mound, loves being able to do it. And if he can get back to that point where he feels free and easy, like I could see, like he's the type of guy where if injuries weren't an issue, like I would absolutely see him pitching until he was 41 because of how much he loves it and because of how much he enjoys the whole like everything. Like everyone loves, all the pitchers love pitching, but Darvish loves studying hitters and he loves talking about different grips and he loves experimenting. So I don't know, just from a selfish personal standpoint, I hope it's not. He's been off the top of my head, maybe my favorite pitcher to watch in the last 5-10 years as a Padre, just because of the way he goes about it and because of like the fact that he throws 9-10 different pitches and you never know what's coming. And there were some times where he was awesome, like 2022 leading in the playoffs. He was awesome. He was really good in the playoffs last year, even pitching with some elbow stuff. Obviously 2025 postseason and the whole season wasn't great, but given what he was pitching through, I think there's some excuse there. But man, I hope it's not. But like you said, I think it's probably given he's 39 and elbow operation number 3, it's probably more likely that it might be.
And just the whole statement in sports that once you think about retiring, you've been retired. And the reports are out there that he's been thinking about retiring for 2 years. He's being offered an entire year. He's got a wonderful family. He's got a son who's going to be pitching, I think, at UCSD. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? His statement, and you have to, give it, you never know with translation, it's grok, says, I'll be working hard on my rehab to be able to throw a ball comfortably again. So who knows what that means for his future, but we'll see. Okay, AJ, you qualifying offers. So Michael King, Dylan Cease, those were the 2, right, for the Padres?
Yep, those were the 2, and then they picked up Ramon Laureano's option as well. So
for
those are the news from yesterday. I think I wasn't surprised at all by either of those.
Okay.
Nor was I surprised by. I guess Robert Suarez was an interesting one. I think he could like another team out there would have been like, sure, 1 year, $22 million for a closer. I just don't think like the Padres didn't need that closer, and if they're going to have that money, they're going to spend it elsewhere. Luis Ariz, after the season he had, I didn't think he was going to get one. Ryan O'Hearn, no, like he's a really good hitter, really good player. But like that first base, like spending that money on a spot where you can find some power for a little bit less than that. All of those are guys that I think would be interested in coming back. I don't know who fits the process of coming back to San Diego. But yeah, Cease and King, we'll see what they do. There's like, it's no sure thing that they decline those offers. I think it's probably much likelier that they do. But you could make a case for, after they both had down seasons, coming back, making $22 million, proving it in San Diego, and then not being attached to the qualifying offer next year and making more on the free agent market. They're both relatively young enough. I don't see that happening, but it's something I'm at least monitoring over the next 10 days.
Who's more likely of the two? Who would be more likely? And who could the Padres perhaps work out a? Okay.
Probably King. I don't like, I'm just off the top of my head, I would say probably King. Cease has more of a track record as an excellent starting pitcher. If Michael King were to come back next season and put another top 5 Cy Young finisher, I guess he finished 6th, but he was top 5 on my ballot, whatever that year was, 2024. If he were to come back next year and do that and have 2 of those types of seasons, and then hit free agency at, I believe, 30, like, I think he could make a lot of money. He could also make a lot of money this offseason. So
yes, he can.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why. That's the reason I think it's way more likely that he hits free agency now.
AJ, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I'm so sorry that that AJ Preller always does this. He ruins vacation plans, the best laid plans.
This was nothing, Marty. He did this. He did this on Thursday before I left for my vacation.
That was very, very nice.
This was ideal. Yeah,
Okay.
AJ Preller has ruined many a family holiday and many a vacation, but this one was just fine. I'm gonna make a French press and have a cup of coffee and look at the mountains, and then I'll check back in on Padres news next week.
That's so funny. I had told somebody. Oh, actually, I think it may have been Jake Gariani of CBS who joins me from time to time, that the longer this waited and pushed towards the weekend before the GM meetings, I kept thinking it was not going to be Puhols, because I'm not calling this it's not a news dump. It's not a news dump. It's what Padres fans care about. It doesn't matter if they drop the news on a Saturday or a Sunday. It's still a huge news. But the longer it went on, the lesser I thought it was going to be Puhols. I was expecting like Ryan Flaherty. Like when you hear Puhols and then you're given Flaherty, Padres fans, a lot of consternation. But we'll see how this one pans out. One thing I do know, and I know people don't care about this right now, but Stamon was extremely well liked in the clubhouse. It's a completely different situation from Andy Green, who had no chance. Jace Tingler, who just did not work out. He has respect of important guys who can be a little bit sulky, as we know. And also, I don't think he's going to be scolding media in postgame if you ask him about lineup questions.
Yes, the least important thing on any fan's mind, but that was a thought that crossed my mind.
Yeah. All right, AJ, you're the best.
I will say, what? Maybe one of the times I may have noticed that Craig Stammen might be a future manager. I forget what year it was when he gave up 4 consecutive home runs. But afterward, that's a tough interview to do, and that's tough to answer those questions. He just gave up 4 home runs, and I could kind of tell that he was done answering those questions, but he kept getting them. And someone asked about it again, and he essentially he gave the most diplomatic but kind of irked but not disrespectful answer I've ever heard. It was, he looked at whoever asked the question and said, and I'm sure you have this video from posted from way back when. He said, look, when you give up 1 home run on a major league mound, you want to dig a hole behind it, crawl inside it, and never get out. That's how it feels. I just gave up 4 in a row in the 7th inning of a close game. It's like, how do you think I feel? And then that was just such I don't know, just a very solid diplomatic, what do you say to that? Now you move on to the next thing. Not trying to give up 4 home runs. And frankly, it wasn't his fault that he gave up 4 home runs in a row. They should have had someone else warming up. So he took all the blame, gave a great answer, and is remembered years later for giving up those home runs. And you know what? We'll see what he does in the manager's chair. But I think he has, like you said, a lot of respect in that clubhouse.
AJ, you just gave me a challenge. I was ready to go ahead and start my weekend right now, but now you're forcing me to go back through my pile of videos. I'm going to find that clip and I'm going to use that for the next time. So thanks again for putting this in my brain. And thank you for your time today. Hope I really appreciate you. Have a great time. And hopefully the Padres won't do anything strange over this weekend to go ahead and, ruin your vacation and make you right. So
yeah, that's not how it usually works, but we can hope.
All right, that's AJ Cassavell. I'm Marty Caswell, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. We will talk to you soon because it is AJ Preller season. Thanks, everybody.
I don't feel right about how Shildt left. As players, there's a certain standard you expect from your manager, and there's a certain level of communication. And I think personally, Shildt, I'm going to speak on my own behalf. I'm not going to speak on behalf of anybody else. I know there's guys in that clubhouse that, match my take on this, but I'm not going to put anybody else's name on this but mine. But I had an extremely high level of respect for Shildt, and I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't let someone else's experiences, become your experiences because you're close with the group. It's like the group of friends that, has a buddy that's a jerk to everyone but you, and now you're expected to be, a jerk to them because your friends are mad. It's a very uncomfortable feeling where I'm not trying to diminish any of the stories that have come out. I'm not trying to, make people seem like, they're overreacting and you need to suck it up. But from a player standpoint, I had an extremely high level of respect for Shildt, for what he's done in the game and for how he came in and transformed our organization into like this winning